She told me making me happy wasn't her job, while I was cooking her favorite meal. 12 years of marriage, and those cold words shattered everything. Instead of begging, I decided to show her exactly what life looks like when I stopped caring. By the time she realized what she'd lost, I'd already found something better, myself. My name is Garrett Walsh. I'm 40 years old and own a small business converting vans into custom mobile homes, adventure rigs, as I call them. For 12 years, I poured every ounce of my energy into two things: my business and my marriage to Elise. One thrived. The other, well, that's why I'm writing this. That Tuesday evening started like any other. I'd spend the day installing custom cabinetry in a Sprinter van for a retired couple planning to travel across national parks. I came home tired but satisfied, my hands still smelling of cedar despite scrubbing them clean. Elise was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my presence when I walked in. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, setting down my lunchbox on the counter. She shrugged without looking up. "Fine. Had 3 corporate clients. The marketing team at Bluebird Tech is particularly stressed. Their shoulders are practically touching their ears." I nodded, opening the fridge to grab ingredients for dinner. "I can start on the chicken stir-fry if you want to relax." "Whatever," she mumbled, still fixated on her screen. This was our routine. I'd ask about her day, get minimal responses, then carry the weight of our household while she drifted through our marriage like a guest. I'd become so used to it that I barely noticed anymore. As I chopped vegetables, I mentioned, "The Millers picked up their van today. You should have seen their faces when they saw the fold-out bed setup I designed." She responded, clearly not listening. I paused, knife hovering over a bell pepper. "I was thinking maybe this weekend we could drive up to Lake Tahoe. The weather's supposed to be perfect." That finally got her attention. She looked up with furrowed brows. "This weekend? No, I can't. I've got that yoga retreat with Amanda. The one you just went to last month." I asked, trying to mask my disappointment. "Don't start, Garrett." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "My career matters too, you know." I never said it didn't. I just thought we could spend some time together. It's been weeks since we've done anything just us. She set her phone down, irritation flashing across her face. "Why do you always do this? Make me feel guilty about having my own life." "That's not what I'm doing," I replied, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. "I just miss you." "God, you're so needy sometimes," she snapped. "I don't have to make you happy, Garrett. That's not my job." The knife in my hand froze. The kitchen went silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Those words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. I stared at her across our kitchen island, searching her face for any sign that she didn't mean it, that it was just frustration talking. But all I saw was cold certainty in her eyes, like she'd been waiting to say those words for a long time. And that's when everything changed. I barely slept that night. Elise's words kept replaying in my head like a broken record. "I don't have to make you happy, Garrett. That's not my job." I stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift as cars passed by our window, casting fleeting patterns across our bedroom. Beside me, Elise slept soundly, her back turned to me as usual. The distance between us on our king-size bed might as well have been miles. How had we gotten here? When had this woman I'd built my life around become a stranger? For years, I'd been the one putting in all the effort, bringing her coffee every morning, 2 sugars, splash of almond milk, remembering her colleagues' names, planning trips around her yoga schedule, listening to her vent about difficult clients. I believe that's what love was, giving without expecting anything in return. But something shifted inside me that night. A door unlocked, revealing a path I'd never considered walking down before. The next morning, I didn't follow my usual routine. Instead of waking up early to prepare Elise's coffee and breakfast, I stayed in bed. The alarm blared, and she groaned, reaching over to silence it. I felt her pause, waiting for the familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee that wasn't coming. "Garrett," she called from the kitchen 15 minutes later. "Did you forget the coffee?" I stretched, taking my time to get up. "Guess I did," I replied, walking past her to pour myself a cup from the pot she'd reluctantly made. Her eyes narrowed with confusion. This wasn't the script we'd been following for years. "Are you feeling okay?" "Never better," I said, taking a sip. The coffee was too weak, but I didn't comment. I just grabbed my phone and scrolled through emails, mirroring her usual morning behavior. She stood there for a moment, coffee mug in hand, waiting for something. Maybe for me to ask about her plans for the day, to offer to make her breakfast, to return to the predictable husband she'd taken for granted. "I've got the Henderson job today," I said instead. "Probably won't be home until late." "Oh," she replied, clearly thrown off balance. "I thought Thursday was your early day." I shrugged. "Got behind because of the Miller project. Need to catch up." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to her. As I got ready for work, there was a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't happiness, not exactly. It was something else. Freedom, maybe. The liberating realization that if my happiness wasn't her job, then perhaps hers was no longer mine. I grabbed my keys and wallet, heading for the door without giving her the customary goodbye kiss. "Have a good day," she called out, an edge of uncertainty in her voice. I nodded without looking back and stepped outside into the morning sun. The Henderson job was a welcome distraction. They wanted their Sprinter van converted into the ultimate surf-chasing home on wheels. The husband, Mike, was there when I arrived, enthusiastically showing me photos of what they envisioned. "We want something that can handle Baja backroads but still feel like home," he explained, gesturing excitedly. "Lisa's already bought these special marine-grade cushions for the seating area." I nodded, measuring the interior space. "We can build a full-size platform bed in the back that lifts to store the surfboards underneath. Maybe a pull-out kitchen on the side with a propane cooktop." As I sketched design concepts, showing Mike how we could maximize the limited space, I felt truly in my element. Here, I was valued. My expertise mattered. People actually listened when I spoke. "Man, you're good at this," Mike said, examining my sketches. "Lisa's gonna flip when she sees these designs." The compliment hit differently than it would have even a day ago. For years, I'd come home excited about my projects, only to have Elise barely acknowledge them. When was the last time she'd shown genuine interest in my work? By mid-afternoon, I'd finalized the design plans and started prepping the van, stripping the factory interior to create a blank canvas. The physical labor felt good, ripping out manufacturer panels, measuring twice, cutting once. Problems with clear solutions. My phone buzzed. "Elise, don't forget we have dinner with the Barnetts tonight. 7 p.m. I stared at the message. The Barnetts were Elise's friends from her yoga studio, a couple she'd been trying to set up business connections with. I vaguely remembered her mentioning it weeks ago, but she hadn't brought it up since. Typically, I would have dropped everything, rushed to clean up, and played the role of supportive husband. But today wasn't typical. Can't make it. Still at the Henderson job. Might be here until 9 or 10. I turned back to my work, not waiting for her response. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally. "You can't be serious." I told him you'd be there. I took a deep breath. "Sorry. Deadline's tight on this one." The dots appeared again, vanished, then, "We'll talk about this later." "Everything okay?" Mike asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I replied, surprised to find I meant it. "Just setting some new boundaries." I threw myself back into work with renewed focus. By 7, Mike had left, but I stayed, installing the insulation layer and framing out the bed platform. There was something satisfying about creating something tangible, something that would last. At 8:30, I finally packed up my tools. My phone showed 5 missed calls from Elise, but no voicemails. For the first time in our marriage, I wasn't rushing to smooth things over. Instead, I drove to O'Malley's, a pub I hadn't visited since before we married. Garrett Walsh, Tom, the owner, called out when I walked in. "Where the hell have you been hiding, brother?" I settled at the bar, ordered a beer and burger, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The simple pleasure of doing exactly what I wanted, without explanation or apology. I pulled into our driveway, just after 11. The living room lights were still on. I considered sitting in my truck for a few extra minutes, steeling myself for the inevitable confrontation, but decided against it. I wasn't going to start avoiding my own home. Elise was waiting on the couch, arms crossed, her yoga-toned body tense with anger. "Nice of you to finally show up," she said as I closed the door behind me. "I told you I was working late," I replied calmly, hanging my jacket on the hook. "You smell like beer and grease," she observed, her nose wrinkling. "The Barnetts were expecting you. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I shrugged. walking to the kitchen for a glass of water. Not really. They're your friends, not mine. She followed me, clearly thrown by my casual response. What's gotten into you? You've been acting strange since yesterday. I leaned against the counter, studying her. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful, but something had changed in how I saw her. The spell was broken. Nothing's gotten into me, Elise. I just had a wake-up call. What are you talking about? You said making me happy isn't your job. I reminded her. And you know what? You're right. It's not your job. Just like making you happy isn't mine. Her eyes widened. So you embarrass me in front of potential clients because you're what? Having some kind of male tantrum? No. I replied evenly. I missed dinner because I was working. And then I went out for a beer because I wanted to. Simple as that. You've never skipped out on dinner plans before, she accused. Maybe that's the problem, I said. Maybe I've spent too many years saying yes when I wanted to say no. She stared at me like I'd suddenly started speaking a foreign language. Is this because I'm going to the yoga retreat? Are you punishing me? Not everything is about you, Elise. I set down my glass and headed toward our bedroom. I'm tired. It's been a long day. We're not done talking about this, she called after me. I turned, meeting her gaze directly. Yes, we are. At least for tonight. The stunned look on her face almost made me laugh. She'd never seen this version of me. The version that didn't scramble to make peace, that didn't immediately prioritize her feelings over mine. I'd spent our entire marriage being the flexible one, the understanding one, the one who compromised. Not anymore. I showered and got into bed, feeling her presence in the doorway for several long moments before she finally retreated to the living room. For the first time in years, I fell asleep easily, without the weight of trying to figure out how to make my wife happy resting on my chest. The Henderson van was taking shape nicely. After a week of intensive work, the custom bed platform was installed, the electrical system wired, and the kitchenette nearly complete. I designed a unique fold-out awning system that provided shade while maximizing interior space, something I was particularly proud of. Mike stopped by Friday afternoon to check the progress and brought his brother Kyle, who owned a small adventure tourism company. This is incredible, Kyle said, examining the interior. The attention to detail is amazing. He ran his hand along the custom cabinetry I'd built. Do you ever do larger vehicles? I've been thinking about converting a shuttle bus for my tour business. I handed him my card. I'd be happy to discuss it. Custom work is my specialty. As they left, Mike clapped me on the shoulder. Your website doesn't do your craftsmanship justice, man. You should be charging double what you ask. Their praise lingered with me as I locked up the shop. When was the last time Elise had shown genuine interest in my work? I couldn't remember. At home, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, a familiar crease between her eyebrows as she scrolled through emails. Hey, I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. She glanced up briefly. There's leftover Thai in the fridge if you're hungry. Already ate, I replied, which was true. I'd stopped for a burger on the way home. Another new habit I was developing. She closed her laptop, giving me her full attention for once. Garrett, I think we need to talk about what's been going on. I took a swig of beer. What do you think has been going on? You've been different. Distant. Not yourself. I chuckled. Actually, I think I'm more myself than I've been in years. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the table. Is this still about what I said the other night? Because if you're trying to make some point, I'm not trying to make any point. I interrupted calmly. I'm just done pretending. Pretending what? Pretending that this marriage is equal. Pretending that my needs matter to you. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's not fair, isn't it? I leaned against the counter. When was the last time you asked about my day? My projects? My friends? You never seemed to mind before, she said defensively. I minded. I just didn't say anything. That was my mistake. She stared at me, genuinely confused. The Elise I'd married would have recognized my pain, would have cared that I was hurting. When had she become this person who couldn't see beyond herself? Look, she said, softening her tone. We're both tired. Let's go out tomorrow night. Just us. We can go to that steakhouse you like. My treat. The old Garrett would have jumped at this olive branch, eager to smooth things over. But I saw it for what it was now, a Band-Aid on a wound that required surgery. Can't, I said. I promised Tom I'd help with the charity poker tournament at O'Malley's. Raises money for veterans housing. Her mouth opened slightly in surprise. Since when do you play poker? Since always, I replied. You just never bothered to notice. O'Malley's was packed when I arrived Saturday evening. Tom had transformed the back room into a tournament space with 6 poker tables. Familiar faces greeted me, guys I'd known for years but had gradually lost touch with after getting married. Walsh, you actually showed. Dave Miller pulled me into a bear hug. Tom said you were coming, but I didn't believe him. I grinned, accepting the beer he offered. Wouldn't miss it. Where's the ball and chain tonight? Asked Mark, another old friend. At home, I replied simply, not feeling the need to elaborate. The night progressed in a blur of cards, laughter, and easy camaraderie. I'd forgotten how good it felt to be around people who expected nothing from me except my company. No walking on eggshells, no carefully measured responses, just genuine connection. I made it to the final table, eventually finishing third and earning a respectable payout that I immediately donated back to the cause. As the crowd thinned, Tom joined me at the bar. Good to have you back, Garrett, he said, sliding me a whiskey. Missed your ugly mug around here. I chuckled. Feels good to be back. Everything okay with you and the missus? He asked, keeping his tone casual but his eyes concerned. I swirled the amber liquid in my glass. Not really, but I'm okay. He nodded, not pushing for details. That was the thing about male friendships I'd missed. The unspoken understanding, the respect for boundaries. My phone buzzed. Elise. I declined the call. Need to take that? Tom asked. No. I pocketed the phone without checking the inevitable text that followed. Later, as we helped clean up, Kyle from earlier in the day appeared. Thought I might find you here, he said, extending his hand. Mike gave me your number, but I wanted to talk in person. I'm serious about that shuttle bus conversion. We spent the next hour discussing his vision, sketching ideas on bar napkins. By the time we finished, he'd agreed to a consultation at my shop the following week, a contract that could be worth 5 figures. As I drove home well after midnight, I realized I hadn't once thought about whether Elise would be angry or worried. For the first time in years, her reaction wasn't the center of my decision-making process. When I walked in, she was waiting up, sitting in the darkness of our living room. Have fun? She asked, her voice tight. Yeah, I said honestly. I did. You could have answered my call. I was busy. She stood, arms crossed. With what? Drinking with your buddies while I sat here alone. I met her gaze steadily. I was networking, actually, just landed a potential major client. The surprise on her face would have been comical if it wasn't so sad. She truly had no idea who I was anymore. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. I woke early, a habit from years of construction work, and quietly slipped out of bed. Elise was still sleeping, her back turned to my side as usual. I stood for a moment, watching the gentle rise and fall of her breathing, struck by the realization that I felt nothing. No anger, no resentment, not even disappointment anymore. Just a strange, hollow acceptance. In the kitchen, I made coffee and took it out to the back deck, something I hadn't done in ages. Our yard needed work. The flower beds Elise had insisted on planting were overgrown with weeds, the result of her initial enthusiasm giving way to neglect. Much like our marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle, serious about that bus conversion. Got the vehicle yesterday. When can we meet? I smiled, typing back. Tomorrow afternoon works. Send me the dimensions and any specific requirements. The back door slid open, and Elise appeared, wrapped in her silk robe, coffee mug in hand. Her hair was perfectly tousled, her face bare of makeup but still striking. She'd always been beautiful. That had never been our problem. You're up early, she said, settling into the chair beside me. Always am. You just usually sleep through it. She sipped her coffee, studying me over the rim of her mug. I think we should talk about what's been happening. I nodded. Probably overdue. I've been doing some thinking, she continued, setting down her mug. And I realize I haven't been as attentive as I should be. I want to fix that. In the past, those words would have filled me with hope. Now they just sounded hollow, like lines from a script she was reading for the first time. It's not about being attentive, Elise. It's about caring. I do care, she insisted. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you only started caring when I stopped making your life convenient. Her expression hardened. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's honest. She reached for my hand, a calculated gesture. I love you, Garrett. I don't want to lose you. I looked at her hand on mine, remembering a time when her touch sent electricity through my veins. Now, it felt like nothing more than pressure and warmth. "The problem is," I said gently, removing my hand, "I don't think you love me. I think you love the idea of me. The husband who handles everything, who never complains, who puts your needs first without question." "That's not true," she protested, but the uncertainty in her eyes told a different story. "Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my dreams? My frustrations? My fears?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to produce an example. "I'm heading to the shop," I said, standing up. "I've got work to catch up on." "On Sunday?" she asked, the annoyance creeping back in her voice. "Kyle Henderson wants to convert a shuttle bus for his tour company. Could be my biggest project yet." Instead of sharing my excitement, she frowned. "So, you're just going to leave in the middle of this conversation?" "We're not having a conversation, Elise. You're trying to restore the status quo, and I'm trying to move forward." I walked away, leaving her sitting alone on the deck with her cooling coffee and the realization that her usual tactics weren't working anymore. Kyle's shuttle bus was exactly what I needed, a challenge big enough to consume my attention and energy. The vehicle was a 24-foot retired airport shuttle with good bones, but a gutted interior. Perfect canvas for something extraordinary. I want it comfortable enough for day-long tours, but rugged enough for off-road adventures, Kyle explained as we walked around the bus. "My clients expect luxury touches, not just practicality." I nodded, ideas already forming. Modular seating that converts for different group sizes. Solar array on the roof. Maybe a fold-out awning system for rest stops in scenic locations. For 3 hours, we discussed possibilities, sketching layouts, and calculating costs. By the time he left, we'd signed a contract for the largest job I'd ever taken on. I worked late into the evening, losing myself in design renderings. My phone buzzed several times with texts from Elise, but I let them wait. This project wasn't just work. It was a lifeline pulling me toward something new. When I finally headed home, it was past 10. I found Elise in the living room, dressed in the black dress I'd always liked, 2 wine glasses on the coffee table. "I was waiting for you," she said, her voice low and seductive. "I thought we could have a nice evening together." In the past, this scene would have immediately diverted my attention. Now, I saw it for what it was, another attempt to regain control. "I'm pretty beat," I said, setting down my keys. "And I've got an early start tomorrow." She stood, crossing the room with practiced grace. "Can't you take a break? Just for tonight?" Her hand touched my chest, a familiar gesture that once would have made my heart race. I gently removed her hand. "I've got a major project starting. This shuttle bus conversion could put my business on a whole new level." "It's always about work lately," she complained, dropping the seductive act. "No, Elise. For years, it was always about you. Now I'm trying to find some balance." Her eyes flashed with momentary hurt before hardening again. "Fine. I'm going to bed." As she stormed off, I noticed something strange. I felt no impulse to follow her, to apologize, to make things right. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, refining my designs for Kyle's bus, feeling more purpose and excitement than I had in years. Later, lying in bed with Elise feigning sleep beside me, I realized something important. I wasn't fighting to save our marriage anymore. I was fighting to save myself. The shuttle bus conversion consumed my days and thoughts. I'd hired 2 additional craftsmen to help with the project, and the work was progressing beautifully. Kyle had given me creative freedom, and I was designing features I'd always wanted to try, but never had the opportunity to implement. 2 weeks had passed since my conversation with Elise on the deck. 2 weeks of superficial interactions, strained dinners, and separate lives under one roof. She'd cycled through various tactics: seduction, guilt, cold silence, and finally, a brutal civility that was somehow worse than open conflict. Friday evening, I was reviewing material samples in my home office when she appeared in the doorway, dressed for an evening out. "I'm meeting Amanda for drinks," she announced, dangling her car keys. "Don't wait up." I nodded, returning my attention to the bamboo flooring samples spread across my desk. "That's it?" she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. "No questions about where I'm going or when I'll be back?" I looked up, studying her face. "Would you care if I asked?" That's not the point. What is the point, Elise? She crossed her arms. The point is you've completely checked out of this marriage. That's interesting, I said calmly, considering you checked out years ago. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the flush of anger that spread across her cheeks. So this is payback, making me feel ignored because you felt ignored. I shook my head. This isn't about making you feel anything. It's about me finally living authentically. What does that even mean? She demanded. It means I'm done pretending. Done acting like this marriage is something it's not. She stepped into the room, her movements sharp with tension. And what exactly is our marriage, Garrett? A convenience, I replied simply. A habit. Two people sharing a house, but not a life. That's bullshit, she snapped. We have a life together. Do we? Because from where I'm standing, you have your life, and I've just been an accessory to it. Useful when you need something, invisible when you don't. She flinched as if I'd struck her. You don't mean that. I do, I said quietly. And the sad part is, it took you telling me that making me happy wasn't your job for me to realize it. Her eyes glistened with tears, real ones this time, not the calculated displays she performed over the past weeks. So what are you saying? You want a divorce? The word hung in the air between us, heavy with finality. But strangely, it didn't fill me with dread or panic. Instead, I felt something like relief. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I know I can't keep living like this. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. I heard the front door slam, followed by the screech of tires as she backed out of the driveway. I returned to my samples, but my mind was elsewhere. For the first time, I'd spoken the truth we'd both been avoiding. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were. Elise didn't come home that night, or the next. By Sunday evening, when she finally returned to pack a suitcase, I'd made peace with the inevitable. I'm staying at Amanda's for a while, she said, avoiding my gaze as she stuffed clothes into her designer luggage. I need some space to think. I leaned against the doorframe of her bedroom. I think we both do. Her movement slowed, and she finally looked at me. Did you ever really love me, Garrett? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I loved you completely. That was never the problem. Then what was? You never loved me the same way. I said it without bitterness, just stating a fact we both knew was true. You loved what I could do for you, not who I was. She zipped her suitcase, her knuckles white around the handle. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's honest. As she walked past me toward the door, she paused. What happens now? Now we both figure out what we really want, I replied. Separately. After she left, I wandered through our house. It felt different already, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. I poured myself a whiskey and stepped out onto the back deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. 3 months later, the divorce papers were finalized with surprisingly little drama. The shuttle bus conversion had been completed and was a resounding success. Kyle had already referred 2 similar projects to me, and my business was thriving like never before. I'd moved out of our suburban house into a smaller place closer to my shop, with a workshop big enough to handle my expanding business. The walls were adorned with blueprints and photos of completed projects rather than the generic artwork Elise had chosen. Tom and the guys from O'Malley's helped me move, turning the chore into an impromptu housewarming. As we sat on my new deck that evening, beers in hand, Dave asked the question they'd all been tiptoeing around. Any regrets? I thought about it, watching the fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. Just one, I finally answered. That I didn't realize sooner that I deserved more. To new beginnings, Tom said, raising his bottle. I clinked mine against his, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, mixed with a quiet certainty that the best was yet to come. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I sat alone on my deck, listening to the chorus of cicadas and distant traffic. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise, the first in weeks. I hope you're happy. For once, I could answer with complete honesty. I am.